It is March 8th, 2021. Lesson 128. The world I see holds nothing that I want. So, kind of want to use the lesson for today because at this point, what we're doing is making a transition. From my experience, it seems like I'm kind of holding on to old belief systems or old beliefs about how I have been going about life, right? Where I have seen life as a sacrifice, right? And how I sacrifice everything for the greater good, for my own higher development, and for others, just in general, right? Because I compromise my time, my own love languages, right? Giving gifts, acts of kindness, words of affirmation, time freedom, and physical affection, physical touch, right? They all fall into this realm in terms of what this life can look like, right? So if we have the ability to look at the things that hold us back, okay, then we can see why we have been always disappointed, right? In hopes that we'll turn our despair or our grievances into something that may never ever come, right? So each thing that we value here, right, is basically a chain. Okay, so attachments are the root of all suffering. So basically, the way that our mind blocks us or even our emotions block us because of the interpretations of how we have created some form of adverse relationship with our emotions are our limitations, right? Wherever we are limited at, that's where we're at. So when we look at everything must serve a purpose you have given it until you see a different purpose there, you start to see that, of course, we feel like it's justifiable, right? If I think that I'm not wanted or that I'll never make it or that, what was the thing that I was going through today? The ability to see whether the right voice is making the right decision, okay? Which means that if I'm not making my decisions, then who is making my decisions? Which means that if that's not possible, then what is possible, okay? And when I'm taking that in consideration, I'm looking at, that I'm wasting people's times because I'm wasting my own time because I'm not living up to my full potential, or that I'm not being oriented in the right direction, that I need some form of affirmation from the universe to say, this is the right thing to do. And only, understanding that that paradigm can only lead to one ending, which is my own suffering, my own lack of awareness in terms of, okay, God is always forgiving. There's no law. There's no love other than God's, right? So that means that there's no law other than God's, which means that God's law is love. And the world that I have created, right, is a world that holds nothing that I want. So when I'm taking into consideration, right, we try to escape all the things you seek to make your value greater in your sights, limit you further, right? Hide your worth from you and add another bar across the door that leads to true awareness of yourself. So the more that we try to have this pinnacle of what it's supposed to look like, it's only justifiable because of the outside world, right? So in terms of jiu-jitsu, it's something that you can't really master, right? There's always going to be someone that could be better than you, that may know something different than you, right? And we're humans, so it could be one day that you're tired and another one that you're not, and you can perform completely different. So that's idea of, perfectly imperfect allows you to take in consideration what is the kindness and love of God, right? Because you can go like way beyond, what society says is, possible for you. And as we learned with the present moment, some people sacrifice the present for the future and some sacrifice the future for the present. So when we're living from there, right, we have to allow ourselves to not let our thoughts delay our progress to salvation, right? We're looking at being able to be still, being able to be aware when it's trying to be distracted or the ego is trying to pull us away, right? We're letting go of all the thoughts and values that we have given it, right? We must want imperturbability more than we want the world. We hold it purposeless within our minds and loosen it from all we wish it were. Thus do we lift the chains that bar the door to freedom from the world and go beyond all the little values and diminished goals. So when I'm taking that in consideration, I am looking at our liberation, our freedom. Because when you feel like you lost, right, yourself, a loved one, something that you put too much emphasis and value on, and even your word, okay, there's an inner resistance, okay? And for you to understand what that is, you have to let it speak, okay? You have to give it some space because that is a part of you. That is a part of who you are and what, justify those means for you to move on and see, what is beyond you. You have to give it some space and some time and consideration. It could be the wounded child, the absent adolescent, whatever that may be, okay? You have different things that justify your means of action, okay? And, of course, when you give it time to explain itself, if that was, real, if all that was real, if those illusions were real, all those interpretations were real, then, of course, that would be true, okay? So you have some empathy towards that, and that allows you to get to the core, to the root of things, which allows you to say, okay, I forgive you, okay? I forgive you, I love you, whatever it may be, something that you've been rejecting in yourself, which is necessary for you to be whole, holistically, is being integrated back within yourself. And that's what allows you to say, oh, okay, this is the missing part that I needed for me to move on to the next, because that's what's been holding you back, okay? And being able to see that, the world can't give you anything but an experience, then you start to see things from an unbiased perspective, okay? It just is what it is, and maybe you're not done with what you need to do, and that's perfectly fine, okay? It's just better to know when you're clear and when you're not clear, and the information that's coming through, okay? Because when the channel is clear, the energy flows most powerful. Okay, when it's not, then you have to take into consideration, and why is that? Okay, because you have to go through this whole process of, not identifying with the body once again, because that's really the trouble that we have here, and then go through the whole process of getting back into the state of emotional, mental energy that is allowing you to learn. Because if you don't, then you're not going to be receptive, because you're closing yourself and you're limiting your scope on what that is. So basically the world, right, that they're describing is a paradigm. So for you to move on, you have to let go of what this world is trying to want, if that makes sense, okay? You have to let go of this made-up world that you created. It's not real, okay? So once you start seeing truth, you start allowing yourself to take more responsibility, right? And as you take that, now you're allowing yourself to be inspired, okay? And seek further on what is truth and what you are steering towards as you are now on your journey, if that makes sense, right? Because all this that led up to this point was necessary for you to say, oh, okay, now the lessons are now being shown in real life, and it's showing where I'm stuck at, and where I need to go next for me to understand where I'm at in life, as life is now telling me where I'm at. Okay? So